Alright, what's up guys? We're back with another Diablo 4 video here. Gonna just go over some of these new uniques and class changes as far as what I feel like for Druid and Barbarian are gonna be kind of game changers or new build enabling or just significant changes overall. First off, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, I really appreciate it. It helps me out. Getting close to 1,000 subs. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at these while we wait for the new patch and season to drop. So these are the new unique items here. There's several generic ones, and then there are some class-specific ones. So we'll take a look at a couple of the class-specific ones. So this new helmet here for Barbarians, I think, is going to be probably either best in slot for several builds or second best in slot. It may, fall out or lose to the uber unique helmet from Diablo 2. I don't know why I can't think of the name off the top of my head. Like Shaco. Geez. And the reason for this is because there are not very many instances of multiplicative damage in Diablo 4, especially now that in this new patch they've made some changes to crit damage and vulnerable damage. So your increases to those stats will not actually increase the multiplier. It's gonna just increase, the damage. So in PoE terms, if you're familiar with more and less versus increase and decrease, that's the difference between multiplicative and increased damage. Same concept in Diablo 4. So having multipliers of your damage is going to be very significant. And Berserking is now going to be a global multiplier for your damage, whereas before it was not. And then this helmet's going to further increase it. And it's also going to give you 2 Fury per second and a 10% cooldown reduction, which is a very, very big amount of cooldown reduction. And so I think that's going to be pretty big for Barbarians. And then in the Druid area, we've got this new amulet here, where casting Boulder while Hurricane is active is going to cause your boulders to rotate around you. And I think this is possibly the build that I'm going to try and make, just because it I think has the potential to be very just cool and fun to play. And Druid, out of my experience with all the classes, granted I only played Druid and Barbarian through the end game, and the other 3 classes I just tried in the beta, so level was capped at 25. But Druid to me was the most well-rounded designed class in terms of interactions between skills and legendary powers and just build possibilities and uniques. So this is just going to add to the top of that. So Boulder, I felt like, was a very cool skill, but a lot of times the way that it actually, functioned in the game was counterproductive, because it would push the enemies away from you, and then you'd have to try and chase them, or it would just, push them so far that their health bars would reset and they would run back to their spawn location, which could be frustrating. And then on some enemies, it just couldn't drag them. And if Boulder was able to, you can knock stuff off cliffs with it, or crush them against a wall and, just insta-kill them, then I think that would be, a good trade-off for pushing them away and causing issues there for just your clear speed. But this is going to kind of take that away. And one thing that I'm curious about is, while the boulders are rotating around you, is it also going to drag the enemies with it? And so they'll just be constantly dragging around you in a circle, and just how exactly is that going to work? To me, that's just interesting, and I could see it having a lot of unique interactions with other Druid legendary powers, because you can make Boulder a core skill, so it could become spammable. How many boulders could you potentially have rotating around you that has the potential to be, I think, kind of just, possibly an insane build. So I'm definitely interested in that. The other one that this Tybalt's Will, when you become unstoppable, I mean, the increased damage is great, but when you become unstoppable, gain 50 of your primary resource. So on my previous druid build, where your earth skills and your storm skills can reset the cooldown or decrease the cooldown on the other ability, I had almost 100% uptime and like spammable unstoppability or unstoppable. So this would by itself would basically give me almost infinite resource. Like with the passive for trample would give me like 80 to 90 primary resource every time I cast trample. And I could take off like the CC gives me like 4 primary resource from my ring, use a better legendary power on my ring. And this, just basically by itself would almost feed all of my primary resource on that druid build. And so I'm sure there are other builds that it would be very beneficial for as well. The other ones, didn't seem that interesting to me. And now let's go down here and take a look at some of the more class-specific things. Again, I'm just really looking at Druid and Barbarian because those are the ones that I'm most familiar with from the game so far. And I'm just kind of speaking on, these changes and how I think it's going to impact builds and classes in this, game going forward. So the bonus damage from berserking is now multiplicative instead of additive. I'm curious how that will function with like some of the berserking damage bonuses, if they will kind of function the same way, the route of crit damage and vulnerability, and it'll just be additive on top of that initial multiplier. But either way, with just bare minimum with this 25% multiplier and 15% multiplier from that unique helmet, you're looking at 40% multiplier to your damage. It's almost roughly. So some of these other big changes, it looks like they're which I never understood this previously in the game, why all of the fortify and shielding was based on your base life without bonuses. So now it made it like counterintuitive, where stacking max life really didn't give you much benefit if you were using shields. And it was just a little frustrating because it's like, hey, if I'm gonna try and use fortify or overpower or shielding mechanics, you're almost disincentivized from stacking max life. In a way, it didn't fully benefit you the way that you would intuitively think that it would. Upheaval's getting a buff. One of the unique changes also is going to give you +4 to upheaval. So upheaval, I think my barbarian build that used like upheaval to have pretty much permanent berserking, that would be much stronger. And more upheaval buffs. They've again changed this stuff to go off max life instead of base life, and they've capped out the max damage for Wrath of the Berserker, so that's not going to be as powerful as it was. Still strong, but not like the end all be all for some builds that it was at the first season and initial launch of the game. Just a lot of buffs across the board here, just increasing things by a couple percentages versus nerfing things. Nothing major here. Here's where we get into some of the more noticeable changes in the Paragon board. So instead of having an 8% chance to make vulnerable, your damage is going to increase every time you make something invulnerable, and then overpowering a vulnerable enemy gives you additional 10% bonus damage. Not that exciting. I don't think it's game changing. This one, could be strong. We'll have to see. Hopefully some of these changes will make overpower a more useful, potentially, mechanic in the game. Just a 3% chance that you can't increase. You can only, you know, there's some situations you can like guarantee an overpower like this, but again, like every 12 seconds, that's still, you know, if you have a high enough crit chance, you're gonna crit, you know, every other attack. So this is still, you know, it's hard to say how much stronger this will be. Here we have just some more buffs, more buffs, more buffs. This is interesting. I do see the potential for, you know, weapon master builds being very strong. Again, a multiplier for damage, that's really good. That's not as prevalent or easy to obtain anymore, because you can't just stack vulnerable damage or crit damage and win the game. This is a huge buff for Hammer of the Ancients or Hota builds. It's going to increase your overall damage and make it AoE instead of just making the AoE do like half of the base damage. So I definitely think Hota Barbarian, you know, is going to be in a much better spot. Now we get into some of the unique changes. You know, this is somewhat interesting. The big ones that I noticed are here, like I was saying, bonus to upheaval, damage to burning enemies, and then we've got this other one here. Let's see, the 100,000 steps. This is what I was talking about with like weapon master builds. So when you use the ultimate skill where you cycle through your 3 weapons, you know, it's gonna get a huge damage boost from this, and then you're also gonna get that free ground stomp every 15 seconds instead of 30 seconds. So you can just activate that ability, get a free ground stomp, or manually switching through your weapons is going to give you that free ground stomp. So those are the big changes that I see with Barbarian. Now we'll take a look at Druid. And, oh, what did it just do? Okay, there we go. So, Mad Wolf's Glee. This is going to be much stronger than it was. You're just going to get bonus max life and do more damage. Insatiable Fury, buffs, you know, more buffs. You know, just a lot of buffs to shape-shifting. And then again, this switching to based off max life instead of base life is big. I didn't play summons really, so I'm not gonna talk too much about that. This is another big one for Earthen Bulwark, going off the max life. The knockback, I mean, knockback was, you know, this may help clear better because you're not gonna move stuff around so much. That's good. The resistance change, this will probably be strong, you know, because you do need to probably cap your resists now in the game instead of just stacking armor with that change. I still don't know if this is really how beneficial this is. I mean, every 8 seconds a lightning strike. I feel like they need to add more skill points in the game, and I hope that they do that either in a next expansion or future season, because some of these passives and skills, they're cool, but you don't have enough points to get what you need. Like a lot of and then the basic skills, I think they need to make basic skills, like make 7 skill slots, and make one of them, or even make 8. So make one of them just a basic skill slot, you can't put anything else into it, and one of them an ultimate skill slot, you can't put anything else into it, and then the other 6, you know, you can do between core skills, etc., like whatever you want in those, but you could have just one basic skill, one ultimate skill, and then 6 of whatever else you want. and then I feel like the game would be in a much better spot as far as that goes. This other big one here for Nature's Fury, you know, the triggering a free skill is great, but then now they're also going to count as both Earth and Storm skills, so they'll benefit from each other's bonus damage. Here's another big one, more multiplier, and this is interesting, as well as I guess they didn't really change, you know, as many of the Druid uniques as they did. Like, I don't feel like Druid is gonna play significantly different than previously. It's just gonna, you know, there's gonna be some new options and just some stronger. It's just gonna be stronger for the most part. Really, that main difference I think is gonna come from that amulet and what potentials that opens up. Because I feel like Druid was in a good place. Barbarian, though, I think is going to have a lot of, you know, new builds. Or not really new builds, but like builds that will be competitive versus just like one or two hogging the spotlight. I mean, it's pretty much like Whirlwind. And then it was like Bleed, you know. So that's gonna wrap up this video, guys. The season's starting here in about an hour. Let me know down in the comments what class you'll be playing, changes you're most excited about, if you think that this will help revive the game or save the game, or if it's just gonna, you know, be fun for about a week and then everyone's gonna lose interest again. So thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for watching, and remember to give them the D.